up, everybody? Welcome to the Blended Couple on Fire podcast, season 3, episode 19. Today, we're actually talking about the pros and cons of something called Nacho Parenting, and that's coming up
right now.
Are you a Christian and you are looking to take your faith, your family, and your future to the next level?
Then this is the channel for you.
What is up? What is up? Hey, do us a favor. If you're on right now, please do us a favor and hit that share. We would really, truly appreciate it. So, Christy, I want you to share with everybody what you just shared with me. It's about love and about marriage, so you're going to want to hear this one.
Thank you, Sarah.
What's up, people?
So, a friend of ours on Facebook, we actually met him through a coaching site. I just was telling Josh, like, 10 seconds before we came on live, I'm like, I don't know if you saw it, babe, but his name's John. Shout out to John. John Strasser. He actually posted on his Facebook and it said, if the person you loved became a fart, then that fart would be a treasure. And I'm like, that's his status.
That's so funny.
And I'm like, I had to read it a couple times because I'm like, what? Yeah.
Okie dokie. All right. I am, you can keep sharing fart stories. So I am going to share.
What's more important, everyone, is that the Coke Zero vanilla shortage is back up, okay, to where you can't find it. So I have like 3 left in my current 12-pack, and I had my friend Ron Mills bring me one this past Saturday, a 12-pack, to my son's open house. So I only have 1 12-pack left of Coke Zero vanilla. Okay, so be on the lookout for it.
She's so funny. She's always trying to rope people into getting her
No, I need eyes and ears everywhere to find stuff.
Eyes, my ears, getting me my Coke Zero vanilla.
Yeah, I need to know where it's at.
I told her she just needs to switch up. That's what I told her today. And she's like, no. And I'm like, it's apparently not being created that much, okay? It's not popular. It's not a popular flavor.
No, it's rare. Okay, and that's what I like is rare.
It's rare. Well, it's going to be so rare you're not going to be able to find it anymore. All right. I'm sharing this. Join us now.
So, Nachoing, I don't know if you guys have all heard about it.
Boom.
Yeah. So,
boom. When
Josh and I were talking about what we wanted to talk about on our next podcast, I brought this up only because, and Josh can attest to this. I'm kind of taking the opening from you. I'm sorry.
No, do it up, girl.
Is that we're part of a few different blended, we have our own, Christian couples of blended families, but then we're also part of other blended groups, on Facebook.
Yep.
And this one group that's specifically surrounding this nachoing, I don't even know if I want to be part of the group anymore. I may take us out of it only because every single post is about bashing, and it's mainly women, and they're bashing their current spouse, the spouse's kids, their kids. And I think it was founded on maybe really good attributes, and maybe they wanted to make the marriage work, and this was an idea, but it's really turned into just bashing. And what, from the posts that I see, it's people are promoting division within the marriage, and I just don't like it. For instance, I'll tell one story and then we can get to the stuff.
Yeah, you're kind of jumping ahead though.
Okay.
Because we need to explain what nachoing is.
You explain it then.
Okay. So it's a form of blended family parenting is basically what nachoing is, okay? So it's the whole premise of the word nacho is exactly like it sounds like. It's a play on words, right? It's nacho kids. That's really how the premise was. So this lady and this man that have a blended family, they created this, and I don't know how long ago, but you can actually go to their website. It's called nachokids.com. You can go there, you can check it out, read about it, it's all on there. Actually, what I'm going to read that's on the screen right now and something else I'm going to read is actually from their website, okay? And I wanted to make sure that we're not misquoting or we're not taking and flipping information around. We want to give an honest opinion of what we feel about this, and that's why we say pros and cons, because there is some pros to the stuff that's on there, like some of the concepts, the ideas, and Christy's stating, and she wants to share a story, which she should, about, our initial interaction with Nachoing or with the group. And there is a lot of people in this group. There is maybe 10, 20, 30,000 people within this group. There's a lot of people in this Nacho group, but it does, like, every time something comes up on the feed within the group, it's like, it's always something really negative and bashing and like, yeah, screw those kids. And they're not yours. They're Nacho kids. And, and it feels like it's just super negative. So we kind of started looking into it. Christina was like, we want to look into this and find out a little bit more about it. And the more that we look into it, the more that we have an opinion about it, like anything else on earth. So that's a little bit about it. The Nachoing is, right, and the things that you see on the screen, right? Treat the step kids as you would a friend's kid. Allow the bio parent to pretend, to parent of their own kid as they deem fit. Not engage in negative and unhealthy interactions with the step kids. Act as a babysitter in the absence of the bio parent. Say nothing about or to the step kids unless it's sheer praise. Remove the target off your back and no longer being the quote-unquote bad guy. Have no interaction with your significant other's ex, which is the other bio parent. Let go of the things you cannot control and realize the ultimate control is to control how you let things affect you, and help the step kid if they ask for help. And that help can be by responding with, go ask your dad. I read all that because if you're listening to this on audio, I want you to make sure that you be able to know exactly what it is that we're talking about. So share your story, my gorgeous wife.
One of the stories that was on there, and it just stood out to me, is the person was like, we had our 1.5-year-old and 9-month-old go down for a nap. And I don't know, they were young kids. Okay, I don't remember the exact ages. And she said, my husband went down for the nap at the same time around 1 o'clock, knowing that he would have to get up at 3 to go pick up his other daughter. And I didn't wake him up, and I knew that he wasn't getting up, but it's his responsibility. And then when he did get up, it was like 4 o'clock, and he was like, well, you could have woke me up. And she's like, no, it's not my responsibility to wake you up to go pick up your child. And I'm like, what kind of partner is that being to your spouse? And when we have to go on to, take it even into a deeper level, if we have to go on to a public platform to post the negative or toxic things that we're doing to get reassurance to make us feel better about what we're doing, that should be a red flag all on its own.
Well, that's unhealthy.
But it's unhealthy. Like that's being unhealthy in your marriage. Now, I'm not saying the people that created Nachoing are going to promote and agree with everything that's posted on their site. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying the majority of this site has turned into people, the group members, bashing and just being negative and not promoting healthy relationships, not only between themselves and the stepkids, but them even in their own marriages.
Well, yeah, a couple things. It's not on their site. It's on the Facebook group, right?
Sorry.
Which they can monitor that stuff, right? So when you have a Facebook group, which we do, you can set it up so it monitors these things that are being said, that you could be like, okay, this is bashing and we won't allow it. It could be part of terms and conditions that you have on your own group. So they could monitor it. And I don't want to judge these people. I don't know what's going on. But what we do know is it's everything that we've read so far, it's felt like, oh my gosh, it just feels like it's just bashing, right? It's all has a negative weight to it.
Right.
So that's why I want to kind of talk about it. Like, so if you've heard of Nachoing or not, or curious about what it is, number one, we encourage you to go to nachokids.com and check it out for yourself, number one, right? Mm-hmm. Read up on it, look it all up yourself. But at the same time, we kind of want to talk a little bit about what our take is on it, our cons and our pros of what we think it is. So that's what we're going to spend the next half hour or so, 40 minutes or so. And we want to talk about now. Of course, it is easier for Christy and I to come up with more cons than it is pros. Only because looking into it and stuff, we do agree with some of the stuff, but at the same time, there's more that we don't agree with than we do agree with. And I don't know if it's because we're taking it from a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
It very well could be that too, because this is not Christian based.
Right.
I don't know if the people are Christians. I don't want to say that, but it doesn't say that. It
doesn't have biblical principles.
It doesn't have any biblical principles, and it doesn't have that, right? So right off the bat, I would say that as a con. I mean, that's like a number one con
for us.
For us,
I mean,
right? For
Christianity.
us, yeah, we want to make sure that the ththings that we decide, the way that we work, is based off of biblical principles, or that it's in line with what the Bible is telling us that we should do. So, I want to bring up. I have another slide So it's kind of a breakdown of the actual method. And I'm just going to kind of leave this on the screen. Do you have some stuff you want to read?
Well, I was just gonna go like say a couple of the things when we start talking about the cons and the
Gotcha.
pros.
Okay.
Like why? That's all.
All right. So the first thing that we have down here as a con is it says it doesn't allow families to truly blend.
Yeah, and I think that is a massive con of it because it is telling you basically don't be engaged at all with your stepkids is really what a lot of the points talk from. Now, a couple of the things that are on here, like the help the stepkid if they ask you for help, and that help can be responding with "Go ask your dad." That, I mean, they're children, so. And you guys got married and you are a parental figure in the home based on age appropriateness too.
Yeah.
I mean, teenagers can be trying to start problems on purpose, of course. But if a kid comes and asks you something and it's something simple, you can help them with that. They're a child. Or your response can be like, hey, let me go talk to your dad.
Let me go talk.
Yeah, like let me go talk to your dad
Yeah.
and then we'll come back and let you know what the decision is. So you're presenting a united front to the kids, not that, oh, it's you and your dad and I'm the outsider, against me type of thing. So that can be misconstrued.
Yeah, and seriously, like if you're on right now and you have opinions about this stuff, put it down in the chat. Let us know what you think of these things. I mean, this is just our opinion of the way that this works, but it doesn't allow families to truly blend. We believe, when you use this Nacho, at least the rules and stuff that we've read, the principles that it's based off of, it really treats like you have two separate families living under one roof, and it's designed to do that. Now, I don't want to take away from you do the like my children have a mom, and Christy knows that she doesn't try to be their mom. Like there are some basic things that we have to remember, right? Which we'll talk about later. But I mean, there's some basic things that we want to make sure that we do hold up. But at the same time, when we're blending a family, it's like, okay, we want everybody to feel safe and secure and comfortable. And that also means, transferring authority among parents, right? That means those things. And so I think it's important, like when we talk about the Nacho thing, is it does make it feel like there's a major divide in that the families really aren't blending, or there is no opportunity for them to truly blend.
Yeah, and I think like we can do with humans with anything, this was all probably created with really good intent. And it just gets tainted because we take things to the extreme, which we usually do as humans anyway. There's a couple of things on here that, I mean, Ron Deal even talks about in his book, like you treat your stepkids like, you have the authority of like a babysitter. The bio parent says, when I'm not here, they're in charge, which is, you're not their biological parent. They're not going to respect you in the same way or treat you the same way, especially in the beginning, but you can earn that respect if you guys crockpot your family correctly. And that's just stuff that I think needs to get taken down and, like we said, pray about it and really come together, use a united front for your kids.
Yeah, that is a pro, right? It's one of the pros that we have listed on here. It says a lot of this stuff can be really helpful in the beginning. And Christy mentioned like kind of like the babysitter thing. So like Ron Deal talks about transferring your authority over like you do a babysitter. And in the beginning, that does make sense, right? We can't expect our children, my children, to look at Christy as an authority figure in a home when we just first got together. Like that is going to take time, like the crock pot method, right? It's going to take a little bit of time and respect and understanding and love and caring within the family unit. So that is a pro that's about this Nacho. So it's not something that you just, it's sustained and it stays that way forever within your relationship. It's something that says, hey, in the beginning, this is the way that it needs to be. I need to transfer my authority to you when I'm not present. Not, I can't talk to you about the things that you have concerns about. You have to wait until your father or mother get home. No, that's not even how you treat a babysitter, like
No.
That's just not. So, I mean,
especially if each of you have kids.
Yeah, right.
Like,
yeah. And there's situations where people, like, I wouldn't have children and she would, or vice versa. Like, there is blended families that do suffer with that.
And I get it. It'd be easier at that time to be like, okay, well, you parent your kids however you need to parent your kids. But then when you really talk about a blended family, it's like I can't be off parenting and disciplining my kids in a completely opposite way than he's parenting or disciplining his kids. That doesn't work for family units as a whole. It just doesn't. You have to come together in your marriage to do a compromise that's going to be put across the board for everyone. Like if they're disrespectful or if they do this, this is going to be the punishment.
Yeah.
And that needs to be a compromise in family meetings about it. Not just like, well, that's your kid. You do what you want. These are my kids. I'm going to do what I want type of thing.
Yeah, which leads into another con, right? Doing nachoing really does isolate the families. It creates a major divide between. I mean, it doesn't, number one, doesn't allow the blending, right? Which is what we're looking for. But at the same time, it truly isolates it. Like, for real, like your kids have a different bedtime than my kids, and that's just fine. That's the way it should be. It's Nacho kids and Nacho my kid, type of thing. And it's like, there's true isolation there where compromise is hard. It is. So, which is one of the other ones we're going to talk about. But we have to remember, like, we don't want to isolate. We don't want any more isolation within within this family than there already is coming into it.
Right.
So when we start taking on the attitude, not your kids, that's my kid, my problem, not your kid, not your problem. It really does treat things as an isolated event.
Yeah. And you need to be able to sit down. Like one of the points was like, don't say anything to your stepkids unless it's pure praise. I disagree with that. I mean, you have to be able to be part of your job, especially if you're a Christian and now you're married. God has anointed you. You're in this marriage now and you're in this relationship now. That's part of your responsibility, is to teach them how to be good citizens and good people, to go out into the world with the golden rule, and to love God and to love people. And so just to not be able to correct them on simple things, to me, that's people that aren't comfortable with communication. Maybe you need to increase your own comfort with confrontation to be able to have positive and healthy communication when it comes to conflict resolution. Sit down and say, hey, I wouldn't be doing my duty as, of course, after you talk to the biological parent, but you guys have a mutual understanding, like what's respectful, what's not respectful.
Which needs to happen, right?
And if he's not home and, his daughter, when she was 14, was getting ready to go out in like some kind of hoochie mama outfit, that is my job as a woman in her life, a godly woman, to sit her down and say, hey, I don't really think that's appropriate for you to go out like that. And let's talk about why. Let's talk about why you feel like you could or should.
Well, teachers. I mean, let's just take a teacher, for instance, right? Teachers are put in positions at schools where they don't only just do praise, right? There is correction. There is, I'm sorry, you can't be talking right now. I mean, so the whole, like, the only time you ever talk to them is when you give them praise, just teaches them that you don't have a right to talk to me at all unless you're telling me something good. And so I don't think that passes authority correctly amongst the family, especially the way that God talks about the way that authority works inside our home. It doesn't tell the child that they are supposed to respect the other person because you only tell me the things I want to hear and when only things are good. And I think that's just misappropriated in the way that authority is supposed to work within the home. Now, I say all that to go right back to the beginning and say that foundation in the beginning really needs to be worked on hard and steadfast, like it really does. And it needs to be carefully applied. In the beginning, we didn't do that. In the very beginning, I was putting Christy's boys in the corners because, they would talk back to me. They wouldn't listen, these things like this. So without even asking her, I just went and did these things. And they should have never been done that way. That's the opposite of Nacho. I mean, I went the other way and say, well, this is the way that I handle my kids. This is the way I'm going to handle your kids. And I never even talked to her about it. Mm-hmm. And so that was really inappropriate. And I shouldn't have done it that way. It should have been, hey, we need to sit down and talk about this and find out what we agree on and then allow her to carry out the discipline with her children. That's the appropriate way to do it.
Yeah. When we first got together, my kids didn't have a bedtime. I was just like, they'll go to sleep whenever they want to go to sleep, and they could stay up and play, and it was really weird. Okay. Cause I'm a pretty much rule follower. So when it came to that, it still doesn't make sense to me to this day why, but his kids did have a bedtime. It wasn't all of a sudden, oh, his kids are going to bed and now my kids all of a sudden have to be going to bed. We had to gradually keep redirecting my kids to go back into the bed. They weren't tired. They were used to being able to stay up as late as they want. And we needed to have that correction together and sit behind closed doors and talk about the way that it was going to look. And, it was difficult. I think the transition was really difficult on my kids when it came to like bedtimes and what they are allowed to talk about and not allowed to talk about and things like that. And then for his kids, it was hard because his kids got to be like voice their opinions about everything to the point where I viewed it as disrespectful. It's like, okay, we've already given you the answer.
Right.
You don't get to keep arguing about this
Yeah.
at this point. Like, we've heard you. The answer's no. Like,
yeah, and it was to a point too in the beginning for both of us. Like, her kids would be able to sleep with her in her bed anytime they wanted to, and my son slept in my bed anytime he wanted to, and that changed. Like, I mean, like severed arms.
it's really
like,
sad. Yeah.
like we didn't even make it. Like, it was an unspoken thing between us that we just like did, and we shouldn't have done it that way. Like, we should have handled it much more careful than that. And that was really, really brutal. Like, it's a lot. We have a lot of, regret for things, handling things that way, that it felt like we really just kind of deserted our children in the beginning when it came to that type of stuff. And that wasn't fair. So, it's like, it's taking care on both ends is really being careful. But, the next thing we really had as a con was, doing this nachoing, this style really gives excuses to not do the hard stuff, like compromise
and communicate.
Yeah. Which is when you nacho, it's like, not my kids, not my problem.
Yeah.
And you're not forced to communicate at all. I have on her website, on this lady's website, that this nachokids.com, I was kind of reading her a blog that she had on there today, and she said part of her story, she was just like, his kids started acting up. So instead of her saying anything, she just went outside and just sat outside until it got loud enough to where the dad heard it, and he came inside and took care of it. And man, I just don't agree with that. Like you can have healthy communication. Like, maybe the kids are acting up and maybe they need to be corrected, and maybe you're not the person to do that right in that moment. But having a discussion with the husband, like, hey, what's going on in here? Let's take care of this. That's hard conversations that you have to have in the beginning, so they're not hard later. So it's a healthy communication, and that compromise needs to happen, because otherwise we get into where I know everything because they're my kids, and she knows everything because they're her kids. And then it just grows into worse and worse and worse as time goes along.
Well, and then on the other flip side of that too, if your stepkids are acting up and it had gotten to the point where, I disciplined them and he came in and then undermined what I disciplined, that means that there's something in the marriage that he's not trusting what my calls, my game time decision calls about how the kids were acting in that moment. And that is a marriage thing. Like, that needs to be...
Which is disrespectful.
It's disrespectful. So there would be times that I wouldn't agree with stuff that he did with my kids, and vice versa. And we would have to go in the bathroom. If you've listened to our other podcasts, we've talked about bathroom talks. And in the beginning, for months, years, it lasted hours sometimes in there. But then we would have to come out, and either we agreed to, okay, their life isn't ending, we'll just leave it the way it is, but don't do it again. Or we're going to change it up, but this is the way that we're going to word it so it doesn't look like we're undermining the other person.
Yes.
And so if that was the issue, why she stopped disciplining her stepkids because she got undermined, that's not the kid's fault.
Yeah.
That's a marriage thing that needs to get addressed.
Yes.
And then again, if it isn't, on the flip side of that, like he said, it's like, hey, they're acting up out here. Let's go take care of this, and follow through on it. Not just go outside and let them act that way.
It's really weird. So, this is now the second time that I've heard advice given to where through people that are encouraging families. And another one is a marriage. They do marriage counseling, coaching, those types of things, put on events and stuff. And they talk about, like, you shouldn't have compromise at all. You should never have to compromise. Compromise is just foregoing who you are. And man, I can disagree with that more. I think compromise is something that we absolutely have to do in life in general. I mean, I know
relationships.
There's a lot of stuff in the Bible that I may not agree with, but I have to be willing to say, hey, this isn't about me. Everything's not about me. Like, this is God's word, and I have to abide by it, even if it's not what I feel like. And I think for those that agree that you should never have to compromise, it's just all based on the way that you feel about something. It doesn't have anything to do with logic. It doesn't have anything to do with like love and caring and adoration about the other person or your other the family you're trying to create. Like, we have to really be willing to compromise on a high level, like deep and high level, and that's a hard thing to do. Nobody's saying it's not. I can tell you right now, and I know that Christy will agree with this, in our first marriages, compromise wasn't even considered. Not even a little. Like,
you do not tell me what to do.
At all. Like, and if you do, sure,
I'm
I'll
gonna do
nod
it
my
anyway.
head. I'm just doing what I want anyway.
Yeah.
And it's just sabotage is what it is. And so, it talks about, the compromise isn't part of what it is. And a compromise has to be actually a priority. It's something that we have to make sure we do. So do you have something you want to add or do you want me to move on?
Yeah, I shared something on our the Blended Couple on Fire page today. I was trying to go find it. Oh, right here. It's humility creates room for growth. Pride makes you a moron. Okay.
I actually like that.
And it's meant to have some humor in it, but that's what it is. Like, we're meant to be humble and have humility and have empathy, like put ourselves in a lot of people. What I've noticed more and more and more, the more that God breaks me down and the more humble I become, the more I realize that people don't want to put themselves in the other person's shoes because it makes them not be able to be mad. It makes them have to understand it from that person's perspective. And a lot of times people just want to be prideful and they just want to be mad about something, and they don't want to hear, they don't want to understand. They just want to be angry about it. And that isn't what God has called us to do, especially in our marriages and in our families. Yeah. We need to put ourselves in the children's shoes. How are they feeling? Like, how quickly have you tried to microwave this family? And then you may be isolating them and even more, and their little emotional, immature children they don't know how to process that stuff. They're looking at the adults in their lives to teach them on how to do it. And if you're just like, you're not my kid, you're not my problem, speaking from a person that grew up feeling unwanted their entire lives, that is not the right way to do it at all.
No, when you teach your children, that's the way that you should be in marriage.
Yes.
And the way that it is with God, that I love so much is that God says, he doesn't say, your nuclear family is what matters the most. So the Bible doesn't talk about nuclear at all. He talks about the marriage that you have and the family that you have, right? God doesn't want divorce. God hates divorce, right? We're not talking about that.
Right.
What we're talking about is the family you have now.
Yeah.
The family you have now. And that's the one that we need to honor the most. And it talks about the hierarchy, and it doesn't say, oh, unless it's a blended family, we need to change the hierarchy then. That's different, right? So we need to make sure that we're separated, if it's a blended family. The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says this is the hierarchy of marriage and hierarchy of your life, and this is how it's designed to be healthy in the way that it's going to be most honoring and glorifying to him. And that's a hard thing to do. I get it. Like, it's hard. But we brought this on ourselves. Like, I chose to get divorced. Christy chose to get divorced. Our children didn't choose this. So the best thing we can do is make sure that our marriage is rock solid, that our relationship with Christ, we follow everything that he's telling us that we're supposed to do in our family. And that's not to create more division. That's not to say yours is over there, mine's over here, and we're just going to live under the same roof. Like, that to me is doing a major injustice to our children. Now, I'm not saying the whole Nacho method is that.
No.
But what I'm saying is it carries a heavy undertone of that.
Yeah. And let's be honest with these two things, right? A lot of the marriages in the Bible, if you really look at it, the men were married to multiple women. And the Bible clearly says the man and the woman are to leave their father and mother and then join in one. And it's just to be one and one. So the Bible even gives many, many examples of how it was done wrong. People were married to multiple different women, and that's not the way that God intended it to be. And then the other thing that I was going to say is that I don't remember. I don't remember what my other point was that I was going to say.
Well, think about it, because I want to read what Doug said. So Doug and Stacy are like our best friends, right? They're our best friend couple. We love these guys. They are a blended family. And, they're incredible people. So Doug says, healthy support of each other's disciplines is important. I totally agree. It's not right to not discipline if you're not the bio parent. It's not healthy. The stepkids will never respect them because they will learn they won't get discipline from the step parent. We really try to always follow up with support from the other, Stace or myself, so that it establishes the healthy boundaries of discipline for the kids. We struggle with our boys on this topic, but I do believe this process will have the best impact. Great subject, you guys. I couldn't agree more with you guys anymore. Yeah, thank you, Doug, for that. I'm actually going to put it on the screen if you can read super fast, people, whoever's on there. I
remember what I was going to say.
It's tough. Yeah.
So the other thing is if Josh and I weren't Christ followers. Okay. And I hope that you know what the difference is. Like I always believed in God. He always believed in God his whole life. I don't think there was ever a time you didn't.
No,
believe that there was
always.
a God.
Yeah. Always and forever.
And I had always believed that there was a God. I grew up in a Christian home, grew up in church, always believed that there was a God. But Josh and I were not Christ followers.
Right.
We got together and our personal relationships with God have manifested, and we have grown each individually with God throughout our time together. And if we would go back, what Josh was saying earlier about divorce, if I would have been the Christ follower that I am now, if he would have been the Christ follower that he is now, we probably wouldn't have gotten divorces because we really love God more than anything else in our life. Unless you're the person that made the decision. Like I was the person that made the decision so like my ex-husband didn't get the choice. So let's say that let's say if you were the person that didn't have a choice, there's nothing you can do about that. Like if your partner divorces you and you want the relationship to work and you want to be married, there's nothing you can do. But I had made the decision to get a divorce, and that's not the decision that God would have wanted me to make. Josh and I got together. We love one another. I feel like he is my soulmate. I feel like we were meant to be together. God already knew this was going to be a part of our story before we were even born, and he still had us be born. So we're okay. So, but now we have to take it like, no, we love God. We love our marriage, and we want to put God at the center of it. And the communication of the kids and just treating his kids like, I only am here to be your cheerleader. Like that's a little fake too. Like, yay.
It is
doing
fake.
So good. Like, welcome to the world of participation trophies, people. Like,
don't even get me started on that.
I mean, welcome to the world of, we said years ago, we should not just give everyone participation trophies. And here we are.
So true. No, so the last con that we have, and then we want to dive into some pros. Okay. So the last con.
Yeah, there are some.
There is some, is it can cause deeper issues. And this is my example of what this means. Okay. So let's just take example that
we can use this as one of our own.
Yeah. So when my son was younger, he was around 8 or 9 years old, he wanted to play hockey. And so his best friend's dad was the hockey coach and says, "Oh, I want Josh to come play." And we're like, okay, he's never played before. And he's like, "That's fine. I'll let him on the team." And so we didn't even know what we were getting ourselves into. Okay. So all I know is that's something my son wanted to do. And I wanted him to do it, right? And that's the type of parent that I was. And it's still I still struggle with a lot of that today. And so he wanted to play. We'll come to find out, hockey's not cheap. And so I told Christy, I'm like, this is something that I want to do. I wasn't going to take no for an answer. Now, I tried to sell it with my salesman techniques and stuff like that. And I think Christy kind of got the hint, like, okay, he really wants to do this and I love him. And as much as it's probably not right and we can't afford it and all these things, she went along with it. This is my point. If we were doing Nacho, I didn't have to talk to her about it. But how does this work? Okay. She was the only one working. So now I want my son to play hockey, and now we have a household income. How do I take away money from the household when it's like not your kid? This is my decision. Okay, that right there is two conflicting concepts, and that doesn't make any sense. Like it doesn't. I guess if I don't have any money, then I guess I can't pay. But then again, it's like, okay, but I get to live in the house even though I don't have any money. All the concepts and stuff kind of they're real conflicting on that. And that's what I love about the Bible is it's not conflicting. It's very straightforward, right? Now we can change the interpretation of it, but my point is it feels very conflicting, some of the concepts, and I'm not comfortable with that. Like I'm not comfortable with it. Yeah. So I think it can drive much deeper issues than just the normal issues that we have. It really can cause a lot deeper conflicts where maybe conflict really even isn't there.
Yeah. And we had to talk, you have to work through those things. And it is a lot easier to Nacho. I mean, it is. He's saying it'd bring up other conflicting things. Not if you want to be stubborn, prideful, and not care.
Not communicate, not sleep in the same room.
No, but your kid, you don't it's hard to put in the work and put in the compromises and have those tough conversations that last hours, sometimes days at a time. I was the person that looked way forward and functioned off of a lot of what ifs. I still struggle with that sometimes. So I'm like, okay, we're going to spend all this money on Josh playing hockey. What if one of my kids wants to play hockey then? We can't afford both. So what are we going to do? Are we going to tell Josh no?
Yeah.
Are we going to tell them yes? So I started making up all these what if scenarios,
Yep.
which can be negative too, because it's like Josh would say, okay, we would have to deal with that if it actually comes up, which it didn't. Garrett chose soccer. Soccer's a lot cheaper than hockey, a lot cheaper.
Yeah, well, a lot cheaper.
So it never came up. And then I truly did love him, and I truly wanted our family to work, our blended family unit to work.
Yeah.
So we found other ways to make it work. Now, it was very tiring on me. I worked a full-time job, and then we would go down and volunteer through this organization. Our thing was called FUSE, Families United for Sports and Education. And we would go down and
work concerts and stuff.
And you don't get the actual money. It gets put into a bank account. Then you have to go purchase the stuff, and then you give them the receipt and they reimburse you.
Yep.
That helped. Just found really different ways for us to be able to afford it, for Josh to be able to do it. So
Yeah.
in the end, it worked out, but those were hard conversations to have, but it made our relationship stronger in the long run. And that's what's important.
Yeah, and I don't want people to think like Nacho is all bad, right? But what I do think is it feels way easier in the beginning to say Nacho, right?
Yeah.
Nacho will work, right? Because of all of this conflict. That's the point, though. Like, work through the conflict.
Yeah.
Work through all that stuff. Don't just start saying, not my problem, like, not my kids, that's your kids. You need to handle that. It's yours. No, kids are going to be mad and upset. They deserve to be. The marriage is not their choice. It's our choice. And so now we need to do the hard stuff. We need to have the hard conversations together. We need to make hard decisions together. We need to do these things. So, that's why I want to kind of talk about some of the pros of this stuff. But the major pro of it is in the beginning, some of this stuff does work. But it's almost like training wheels. Like you have to graduate out of it. That's what I love about Ron Deal. Is Ron Deal talks about a lot of these Nacho type of things, but it's in the beginning and you don't stay there. You have to graduate. You have to get out of that level of it. Only if you're going to get your family to be more harmonious and work more fluidly and understand the whole crock pot theory of it. In the beginning, it's ugly. It's always ugly. Mm-hmm. It's never like people are just going to go, kids are just like, oh yeah, this is the greatest. Mm-hmm. And if you do have one like that, there's another one that does not feel that way. And that's just the way that it is. Christy's oldest son was like geeked in the beginning. He's like, yeah, man, I love people. And my son, I remember, we weren't even together for a couple of months and we were standing in the living room and Garrett got close to Josh and he just hauled off and shoved him down. Remember that? When we lived in that trailer?
Oh, yes, I remember.
I know. Yeah, she was not happy.
He said nothing.
Yeah, I didn't, right? I didn't even know how to react to it. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know what to do about it, which is the wrong way to handle it. But my point is it's ugly in the beginning. It's ugly, it's messy, it's sloppy, it's all of these things. So we need to remember, how are we doing this? Well, we need to make sure that we're doing something progressive. So anyway, a couple pros that we have towards the Nacho is allowing the other parent to discipline. We are firm believers in that. Mm-hmm. We are firm believers in that. When it comes to disciplining, it's we make a decision behind closed doors together. Right. It's not like the whole not my kid thing, right? It's not like, nope, there's discipline needs to be had. You make the decision and you carry it out. No, we believe in taking and saying, let's talk about the discipline that's fair for that child. And then whoever's bio kid it is, if it's my kid or her kid, then we carry out that discipline appropriate. So that is a pro move when it comes to the Nacho method.
Yes. And what helps a lot with this, though, is understanding for your individual own personal growth, is understanding what healthy boundaries are for yourself internally and emotionally.
Yeah.
So what's easy to do, especially when we got together, is that our kids were little. Jordan was 14, but the other three were 9, 8, and 6. And when you are, the primary financial supporter of the family, and you guys, your whole family also is together all the time. We tried to microwave our family. I naturally, as a human being and as a mother myself, started developing motherly feelings over his kids, and you start feeling like kind of territorial about them, especially if they're not being treated correctly by the other parent, or the other parent is living an immature life and the kids are being emotionally harmed or physically harmed in that scenario. You start getting defensive or territorial over that. those are the healthy boundaries that I needed to have in my life to say, hey, bring them to my husband. My husband ultimately has to work that out with her.
Yep.
There's nothing really technically that I can do about it. I can be mad about it. I can go to the court with him and support him, but the court legally is not going to look to me for anything. I have no actual technical legal say over the kids. And that is a hard, healthy boundary emotionally to learn, because you still want to love the kids when they're with you,
Yep.
but you can't then get angry and bitter about something their bio parents doing, because that actually is taken out on the kids too. And that's a hard lesson to learn. So I think that's a pro of Nachoing, that it's trying to tell people to do, is because even Ron Deal says this, they're not your kids biologically, by osmosis,
Yeah.
by pretend, nothing. Stop trying to fake it. Stop trying to act like they are. They really aren't.
And Nacho says that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
so
I agree
that
with
is
that.
a pro. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
That
with
is a
that.
pro. And the other thing that I thought was a pro too is it does say, it can be a pro or a con. It does say, that you shouldn't be doing any communication with your spouse's ex. And I think it's going to be different based on each individual's relationship. So like Josh really had no need to interact with my ex. There wasn't ever a time that it came up where my ex came and made a scene or had control enough over me emotionally that it affected our unit, our healthy little family bubble that we had. But we found when it came to his ex, for a season, not always
Much
and forever.
into our relationship,
It was
5 years in.
Yeah, it was much into our relationship, and it was a season, like maybe a couple years, where he couldn't.
I had to block her on my phone, and I let Christy take care of it.
Yeah, and that was just a season that worked for our
Yep.
family in the time, and it really
And
created, and it did. It really just stopped with all the drama. It stopped with a lot of her being able to emotionally make him feel guilty about things. I mean, they used to be married. She knows.
Tick me off.
Yeah, she knows what buttons to push.
Yep.
She knows. I mean,
She knew all the
especially
negative
knows
ones.
which ones, to create divorce. I mean, that's what you do. You learn the negative things about it.
Yeah.
So, it really worked for a season for us, for me to deal with her for a little bit, because it was not emotional for me. She wanted to call. She couldn't make me feel guilty about things.
You were very matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it did get to a point to where it was wearing on you, because you're like, I don't want to deal with her either.
Well, because then after a while, when she really couldn't get to me, she'd call his mom up and then tell his mom that I said things that were not true. And then his mom would call me and say, well, Danielle said that you said this. And I'm just like, okay, why would anybody even believe what she's saying? I don't even know. I don't understand this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So
But it did work for a little bit.
It did. And that's the one thing that I like on their website that nachokids.com says, right? So that what they say is some of this may work, some of it may not work. You know, it doesn't work for everybody, and everybody's situation is different. So I can appreciate so much that they do say that. I just think there's a lot of ground principle stuff that I do struggle with when it comes to the Nacho method. That's why I thought it was really important for us to talk about this today. But
if you're immature, unhealthy, emotionally person, you're going to take these points to a unhealthy extreme.
And that's the very last point I'm going to make, but I wanted to talk about this last pro first. Okay, the last pro is the whole go ask your dad, ask your mom. Now, I think making sure that your children consult their parent in the beginning is important, right? So I love Christy brought up kind of this a little while ago, and it said, she said, instead of just sending the kid off to go ask her parent, is let me go ask your dad, or let me go ask your mom. Now, in the beginning, it probably is more appropriate. And then your spouse is going to know, okay, before I make this decision, I'll, let me go talk to Christy about it, and then I'll let you know. That way, you're not acting as the middle person for that child in the very beginning. I think in the beginning, it's healthy to send the kid off in the very beginning, because we're still trying to create trust. We're still trying to create those things. And then it's up to the parent now to say, hey, thank you for coming and asking me, but I want you to know that I care about what Christy thinks, so I'm going to go talk to her about this, and then I'll come back and I'll let you know, and I'll give you my decision. And I think it's important to do it in that fashion until later on it becomes, I'll go ask. Josh texts me and he says, hey, do you mind if I go stay at Garrett's house? And I'll be like, have you asked Christy yet? And we've done that now. we've gotten further along
Mhm.
where Josh is like, yeah, I've already said something to her about it. But they know every decision is made here first and foremost.
Yeah. And it has gotten to the point now because Josh and Garrett are both 19 years old. They're both now graduated high school. Like, we don't, our family unit now after 10 years has really pretty much gotten unbumpy.
Yeah, it's pretty
So,
solid now.
yeah, if Josh texts him and said, hey, I want to go over Garrett, his best friend's name is Garrett. I want to go over to Garrett's house and spend the night. He would just say, okay, go ahead. Because it's not a big enough thing to be like, hey, Christy, Josh is going over Garrett's house tonight to spend the night.
He's not 12.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you have to work through these things as age appropriate things too.
Yeah.
And now since we've built that trust in our family unit, they know that if it was something serious, we would talk to one another first. We wouldn't just give them an answer.
Yeah.
Things like that. All of these things have already been worked out now. So a lot of it is on cruise control.
Yeah. And I think the last really big point I want to make on this is that I think if you really go through and you read all the stuff that they have on their website, it really kind of, I feel like the undertone thing is it's like it's to like protect yourself, right? It's to like, oh, you don't want to have emotional issues from this. You don't want to be attacked. You don't want to have all these things. But I think that's completely different than what parenting really is. I think, if you need to work on yourself, which we all should work on ourselves, it shouldn't be through deflection of our family members, or a blended family like the children, like stay away from me so I don't get emotionally hurt by this. Emotional pain is part of it. It's just part of it. Now, being able to withstand it and understand it and handle it the right way, that's different. That's not a Nacho method. That is like, what are you doing to consistently work on yourself? Like, what are you doing to consistently grow as a Christian or as a man or as a woman? Like, what are you doing to do those things? I think it's a separate issue. It's no different than this other program that I talked about earlier about this marriage. And it said, compromise isn't part of it. But at the same time, it also says that you don't need your spouse to have a healthy marriage. Well, that's just completely wrong. All they're talking about is self-development. We should all have self-development. There's no doubt about that, but I can't do it without her. Yeah. I can't have a healthy marriage without her. Like, that's just kind of sidestepping the real issue. Then. Yeah, exactly. And that's just kind of sidestepping the real thing that's going on. Like, yes, at the core of it, and I would tell everybody this, what's going on in your family right now, I'll ask you, how's your relationship with Christ and how's your relationship with yourself? Like, those are two really important things. And if you're not doing anything to work on yourself, then there is a problem. There's a problem. But that doesn't mean that I need to say those are your kids, your problem. Like, that's not the proper way to handle that.
No, and bottom line is, if there is something, me personally and anyone else, if there's something that you're getting offended by or you are really getting upset about, it's usually a red flag of something that you need to mature on, you need to grow on, or you need to deal with when it comes to that. So if I'm getting offended or hurt by something, I might be putting false expectations or a figment of my imagination on that situation and saying like, okay, this is the outcome that I expect from this relationship, or this is the outcome that I'm expecting these kids to treat me as such, and they're not. Maybe the reality that you need to accept is they're not going to treat you as their biological mom because you're not.
Yeah.
So you need to come to terms with that. You need to learn how to love someone that's not your biological child and just love them in the specific way that they need to be loved and not take that out on them or let that affect you in that way. And that's usually you maturing mentally and emotionally yourself. And it doesn't have anything to do with the kids.
Yeah, which is the whole reason why Christy and I began this journey with blended, Christian blended families, is because, just like the Nacho method of parenting, we have something called the blend framework, which is more for couples, because we believe that the stronger your marriage, the healthier your family will be. Correct. Because the way that God has designed, us to work, so everybody has their own ways of doing things. Not that all the stuff that Nacho parenting has is wrong or bad. It's just not true. But I think it's important that we break things down and we have, our own personal viewpoints of it, and we talk about these things because it is important, right? It's not every way is going to work for every person. Our blend framework isn't necessarily going to work for every single person the way that we designed it. It's just the way that it is. So, but it's important that we talk about it and we break it down. So, the one thing that I've noticed can be the most dangerous is the Christian that doesn't read the Bible and only goes off by what they hear. The very little bit of information. And I think, as we read through this Facebook group and stuff, I think they're missing the point.
Yeah.
Have you done your work? Have you done your research? Have you really looked into what this is? Or are you just looking for He-Man woman hater type of group, that you're in there just be able to bash and get things off your chest? There's no value in that.
Mm.
Because if you're not going to listen to the hard stuff that people have to tell you, then there's no growing. There is no value in that. And our
Right.
goal should be to raise up our children to not have blended families. And that's through our parenting. And that's through having a healthy relationship with Christ and with our spouse.
And being vulnerable. I
Yeah.
mean, Jesus was crucified for being perfect. I mean, he did absolutely nothing wrong. All he did is try to love and save people and show them the way. And he was still crucified. And we need to follow that model. You're not to be a floor mat. You do need to have healthy boundaries, but are you strong enough to be vulnerable? And then a kid is going to hurt you. Children from divorced families are hurt, and they're hurting themselves, and they already saw their mom and dad split up. So what is going to make sure that now this mom and new dad, are not going to split up? Like, they have their own feelings that they're dealing with, and they're kids. They don't know how to process them as well as we should. So you have to have vulnerability, and that's why Christ is so important, because you have him that you can go and you can lean on, and then you have your spouse after that to recreate and foundational things with God. And that is really what should be poured into and onto the kids.
Yeah, our relationship, our marriage, our family really didn't take a massive good turn until we decided to commit our lives to following Christ. And then it seemed like things just seemed to make more sense, and
became more simplistic.
More simplistic. We muddied through it. We figured it out, but we had a different goal in mind. We had different things that were driving our morals and our beliefs and the way that we handled things, So it took us a lot longer. If we would have known now or knew then what we know now, like things would be completely different. But nonetheless, we know the ultimate one thing that did change it, and that was our true heart to follow Christ through our family, through ourselves, So I love what Stacy says. She goes, great point, open and honest. Here I have found myself feeling like a competition with the boy's mom, which is ridiculous. It is ridiculous, but it's what we do.
It's natural.
Yep, that's their mom, and they should love her more. And that's true, right? And I know, Christy, right?
Yeah, I feel like, and I've said this to him, the great thing about our relationship is we can be open and honest with the things that we're feeling, and I can say them out loud to him, and I might not ever say them out loud in front of anyone.
We can bash them parents to each other.
No, it's not fair. And I've said that to him. Yeah. Like, it's not fair. I feel like your kids are so loyal to her, and she was so just immature and hard. Like, she made their lives harder, and she emotionally just wrecked them. And it's just not fair, that they're so loyal to her and they're so quick to disregard me.
Yep.
But that is a natural thing that happens. It's just that kids love their parents. And the more that you try to think of yourself as a kid and how you felt about your parents and still feel about your parents and about how you would want your kids to be loyal to you, all of it then makes more sense. Yeah. But I still struggle with it to this day. I'm it's just hard. Like, there was something that I've had to work through, and it may seem petty saying it out loud, but his daughter still to this day will post all over. Her mom's birthday is December 21st. Her mother-in-law's birthday is like January 6th or something like that. And then my birthday is January 26th. And she'll post all over Facebook and social media about her mom's birthday. She'll post all over Facebook and social media about her mother-in-law's birthday. But then when it comes to my birthday, it's crickets. And I've been in her life since she was 14. And if you're around her, she says, I've made an impact on her and showed her God and all these things. But when it comes to being like, people say going to the rooftop and screaming how you feel, that's not the case. That's something, it's hurtful. So you have to be honest with yourself. Like, hey, that's hurtful. She's 24. It still hurts my feelings that she does that. But I have to then get stronger, lean into God, and really be like, is it that important for me to be mad about, where it's going to be ruining my day because of the choices that she needs to make to have peace in her own life? No. No, but I have to create an emotional boundary for me and not put them false expectations and try to pretend that she's going to love me and shout about me as much as she does the other two. She's not.
Yep.
And that's proven. And I have to not, if I have bitter feelings about it, that's my fault though. I can't let that make me a bitter, hateful, angry person.
But
I just
not
have
a
to
rug too.
But not a rug.
Yeah.
And not a rug. And just be able to be honest about it, that it is hurtful, but also understand that that's the decision that she needs to make for her life.
Yep,
and that's only going to grow me too as a person. And that's just the stuff that you deal with in blended families.
And it's
just
messy.
The stuff. It's just messy.
It is messy, and it's you have expectations of your children that no matter what age they are, and even at 24, you're like, okay, you should know better. It just doesn't work that way.
No.
It just isn't that easy. Kids get to be 54, and they still act the same way. So, we just have to understand our part in it. We have to understand, parenting never stops. My son said something to me the other day. He's like, I want to go golfing next week. And I'm like, I would, buddy, but we spent a lot of money lately. He goes like, I'll buy. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. He goes, it's just weird, buying for my dad. And I said, yeah, I understand that. I'm like, he goes, but I'm older now, He goes, the roles have kind of changed a little bit. And I'm like, no, they'll never change, buddy. Okay.
You didn't tell me that.
Yeah, I forgot until just now. I'm like, you're 19, bud, but you're always going to be my son. Like, that's just the way that it is.
No.
Like, those roles will just never change no matter what. They'll transform and they'll sway and they'll alter a little, but ultimately I'm like, you're still my boy. Am I going to let you pay for my golf? Yeah. Like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's, it's not that, but you're always going to be my son though. Like, always. And Garrett and Graydon, Christy's boys are always going to be my stepkids. And I know not everybody's comfortable with that term, but our family is. Always going to be my stepkids, and they know that I care about them and I love them, and I'll always stick up for them.
I want to address that.
And they know those things, So, we got to be careful of the things that we run away from and the things that we try to alter and change. It doesn't always work that way. It just doesn't. It's, it's we can have the expectations all that we want, but ultimately, what are we doing? We want to raise kids to grow up and be great parents and not have blended families. Ultimately.
Yeah. And I do want to address that. So I had somebody recently say to me at work when I'm like, all these, I have 2 stepkids, and she's like, don't call them your stepkids. I hate that people do that. And I'm like, you're not even part of a blended family. Like, what? Okay.
Don't judge me.
But I also was like, have you talked to the kids about what they're comfortable being called? Like, our kids are comfortable with it because we've always embraced truth and honesty.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that it's
bad
hate. Like we're saying in society right now, just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I hate you. It's the same thing. Just because I'm saying they're my stepkids, that's the legal term, doesn't mean that I hate you, and
or I'm belittling you.
Yeah. And our kids are actually super comfortable with it. But if you're not, or your family isn't, have you ever asked the kids what they're comfortable with? Yeah. Like, hey, do you want me to introduce you as my kids? Do you want me to introduce you as my stepkids? Do you want me to introduce you as my bonus kids? Like, how do you want me to introduce you?
Yeah.
And then if they're like, I honestly don't care, because they're old enough to they're a teenager and they really know they don't care, then you need to introduce them how you're comfortable.
Do you want to identify as a stepkid?
Oh, my Lord.
Let's not even go there. But yeah, it's the truth, right?
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole other... Nacho Parenting, I would suggest any type of parenting, like if it's out there and you're curious about it, and we all should be, that, dig into it, do your own research for it, come up with your own opinions of it, but do it in a logical sense. What's going to work best for your family? Take it, but understand that the goal is to create children that want to grow up and be healthy adults, good parents, and ultimately be amazing spouses and followers of Jesus. And in what way are we able to parent them to get that outcome? Mm-hmm. And it's not, I don't believe that the idea is to create segregation, that, we need to teach our children that not everybody gets a medal. Christy made it kind of a funny in the beginning about that. We all don't get medals. We all don't win. And we have to learn how to embrace that and embrace the suck of of being part of a blended family at times. So
you're not a nuclear family.
You're not.
And it's okay. You're here now and you love God. God loves you. And life will go on.
I felt like a rhyme was going to happen just then. Like it was going to happen. All right, everybody. We want to thank everybody for being here today. If you've made it this far, we appreciate it. This is an amazing topic. Parenting is tough. It is. Mm-hmm. And know that we're here to support. If we can pray for you or assist you in any which way, please, you can instant message us right here on Facebook. Or if you're looking to have us come out, we do that. You can go to perfectlyblendedevent.com and we can come on out to your church. We do have a mini event that we do, a 2-hour event. If there's something that you're interested in, check us out. Let us know.
We coach couples too.
We do it, okay? Like we do it. All right. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you next Tuesday at 7.
Bye.
Bye.